Dauntless Stark.
Okay, so I started watching this YouTube video before I figured out like this would be really good for the stream. So the YouTube video is about Shin Megami Tensei 5 and how it is a philosophic masterpiece. And I have some very choice words when it comes to Shin Megami 5. I think that the gameplay is really good, but the story sucks balls. So I'm really curious to see how another individual thinks of it. For those who do not know, I played the entirety of Shin Megami 3 and 5, and 5 is like a pseudo sequel to 3. There's a lot of elements that takes place that it would insinuate that 5 is a distant sequel to 5. That 5 is a distant sequel to 3. My bad, sorry. So we're going to go ahead and watch it, and this is by Max Derrett, and I'm really curious because I have some choice words. I think that the story sucked balls, major balls. So let's give this a go.
Out finished. Not perfect, mind you.
Let's start from the very, very beginning.
There was once a time when video games came out finished. Not perfect, mind you. I'm not trying to romanticize the past as if every game released as polished as Mr. Miyagi's car. Plenty of old games had bugs and glitches, but they rarely got in the way.
Classic.
The game still felt complete because they didn't have the benefit of day one patches or a 12-month Zuko-esque.
You know what? There's a good point. What is the first game you played where it came out and it was like, this fucking sucks? I'll try to think of one.
Redemption arc.
But I don't know the first game
inherently bad.
that
They
came
can be
out.
Wonderful.
And I'm like, this game
the problem
sucks
is when the standard becomes releasing a broken product and fixing it later, rather than releasing a great product first and then polishing it later.
I think
When
Cyberpunk
game
is one of the most
developers adhere to
painful
the latter
ones,
standard,
for being
I
honest.
think it deserves recognition. And today, I want to celebrate one such game that doesn't get enough credit in this regard. That game is Shin Megami Tensei 5.
It's for zombies.
When it released back in November of 2021, it was the biggest success that the franchise had ever had. It sold over 1 million copies, which
is really
damned
good.
impressive for a game that was exclusive to the Switch and the 5th entry in a niche franchise. Well,
So that's actually crazy. I completely forgot about that. So Vengeance is the expansion, and it's the PC port. I completely forgot that this motherfucker came out on the Switch. Which, you know what? I feel like I would have loved on the Switch. I didn't mind playing it on the computer, of course, but holy shit, this game would have been a lot better. Personal life, it was FNAF Security Breach. So yeah, Security Breach was really fucking inexcusable. You wouldn't say it sucks, but it definitely fell out of age with me. Plans for Zombie. Yeah, when I played it was also, yeah, it was, even when it's fixed, it's still a fucking disaster to play. But yeah, there's a reason I've only played 3 and 5. I was thinking maybe playing 4, but it's a DS game, man, and doing look, I love the 3DS, but sometimes playing like the emulated version of a DS game that you haven't played is really rough. So there's a reason why I abstained from it, and also 3 and 5 are on PC and none of the other ones are. So there's a very slim chance I'm going to be playing them. I'd rather play like Persona than another Shin Megami game.
well, technically the 5th. Most importantly, though,
Although Strange Journey is great, but it's not a content game. It's too complex.
it received rave reviews, 8s and 9s across the board.
Which
the combat was
Which for the gameplay deserved. The gameplay is solid as it's ever been.
arguably the best that the franchise had ever seen. The exploration was definitely the best in the franchise.
I
with
agree.
endless secrets and treasures to discover. The music maintained those delightfully ethereal.
Okay, the music's always hit or miss. There's like maybe 2 tracks, in my opinion, that are like actually really good. And then the other ones are, because you hear it the entire fucking game, they just become so white noise. Unfortunately.
And kinetic beats that we had come to love from the franchise over the past few decades. The story was not bad.
It was bad. It started off decent, and then, dude, they just do nothing the entire game. And then when it picks up, you're like intrigued, and then it does nothing the entire game. We'll go over it maybe more. This is as far as I've gotten into the video. But the story was much left to be desired. Because at least 3 didn't have the strongest characters either, but it told you the philosophies of the characters, which is more important. And I'll do a recap if he doesn't, but a large portion of the game of the story of these games is if you could rebuild the world, what kind of philosophy would you have at the core of the world?
That's some good philosophical.
That's not good enough!
Compared to all the past SMT games that I have played, the original story for SMT 5 was serviceable, but
I hear Vengeance, the DLC expansion, which I did not play in the Let's Play, fix a lot of stuff. Although I doubt that, if I'm being pretty real with you.
was underdeveloped. It simply lacked the narrative cohesion or the philosophical resonance that fans have come to expect. Where every other aspect of the game felt like the next big evolution of...
Also, like, this motherfucker just does nothing. He's supposed to be like a main character, and he just shows up. His name's funny. His name's Goku. But, like, he's also very shiny in a lot of the game. But he's meant to be like this character, and his fucking... his role is important, but he's just there. He doesn't do anything. No one does anything except for the main character, and that's what bugs me.
The SMT formula, the story felt like a retread of SMT3 Nocturne,
Battlefront
but with
2.
hardly any character
that broke
development or
PCs.
even a narrative through line. The developers at Atlas could have taken what was still, all things considered, a huge
Changed it
win.
significantly.
They could have done the re-release with all the DLC a few years later, and hopefully do better when SMT6
Goku,
came out
yeah.
in 2039. But
Goku got with the
instead,
ginger.
when they re-released the game as Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, they not only fixed several minor problems with the gameplay and the graphical technical limitations that came with...
Okay, so apparently those red portals, those are an addition to a Vengeance, which, oh my god, if those were not in the game, yeah, the game would be pretty rough to play. They're basically like shortcuts. And they added a bunch of other stuff too, which of course I never know this before going in because I don't want spoilers. I obviously, like, the same thing with 3. I didn't play the Nocturne part of it either, even though luckily for me that didn't. It just added like just more monsters and shit to fight and recruit. Vengeance apparently added a bunch of story stuff, which how the fuck am I supposed to know? I don't want to do research into what the DLC is because I don't want spoilers because I haven't played the base game, which is the philosophy I play. But apparently Vengeance added a lot of stuff into the base game to make it a lot better too, which is it's interesting to know.
Being a Switch exclusive, they also included a new story that addressed almost all of the complaints that people had with the original. Granted,
Which I don't know, to be fair.
it doesn't reach the narrative heights of Strange Journey or Digital Devil Saga, but it is good enough to be in the conversation. At the
Strange
very
Journey is
least,
very
the new story is a thorough meditation on the concept of revenge, and to what extent it influences every aspect of our morality.
The Star Wars game had it, so Darth Vader was a DLC. What the fuck? A Star Wars game had it, so Darth Vader was a DLC pack you had to buy extra, or you had to grind like 60 hours to unlock and to play. Star Wars Hero game, not allowing you to play as the most iconic. Well, he's Star Wars Hero game, not letting you play the villain without unlocking him first. Gee, I wonder why they would do that. Microtransactions killed the game. Yeah, I get that. It is a game. Although I think that they should just fuck it, play the hours. Don't make him buyable. I think that was dumb. Make him unlockable for sure, but just investing into the game. But I think they should have done that for it. Like they should have done like milestones. So it's like 10 hours you get like fucking some dude from the story. 20 hours in you get like Han Solo. 30 hours in you get Luke. Like shit like that. Doing how they did it is really dumb. But Shin Megami time.
From our interpersonal relations to our notion of God. And that, more than anything, is what pushed SMT5 over the edge for me. From being a great JRPG to one of my all-time favorites.
Okay, I don't know if he's going to go into
So today,
the actual story. Okay, he does.
I want to explain why more of you Westerners should put down
Because I like the
Persona for
concept
5
of Shin
minutes
Megami
and
a
give
lot.
Shin
I
Megami
just
Tensei
don't,
5
I just
Vengeance
don't
the
love the
attention it
execution a lot of
deserves.
the
I
time.
promise the
3 was
demons are
pretty
still
decent, I
dateable in spirit. But before I begin, I'm happy to say that this video contains no story spoilers save for a specific section near the end of this video. I've marked that section with time codes in the description box below, so you can watch safely. Now, let us begin with a brief synopsis. Shin Megami Tensei 5 starts off in modern-day Tokyo, where a string of strange incidents has left everybody on edge. Some have reported attacks and murders being carried out by seemingly demonic creatures, which has led to people taking precautionary measures. Even the local high school has adopted a buddy system to make sure nobody travels home alone.
Which I think is
One
a good
day,
idea.
an ordinary high school student encounters two of his
Fine, we'll have this conversation, Carter. We're only reacting to a video. No, you're missing the point. It's not a story game. It's a multiplayer hero shooter game. But isn't Battlefront both? Battlefront has a campaign and it's a multiplayer game. It's a multiplayer hero shooter game in the quotations because it's not a hero shooter, but it's a game where you can play as different. I understand. I know what Battlefront is, man. So even making it unlocks choice action. No, it doesn't. I don't think so. No. Play the game. Unlock more shit. Same thing as COD. A purely multiplayer game. You play the game and you unlock guns, you unlock skins for the guns. Okay? It's the same thing. So if you invest more time into it, yeah, you're going to have the advantage because you have access to more shit. That's just how, that's completely fair to me. Yeah, I agree with Red, man. No. Oh, you're telling me it's bad that I get rewarded for playing the game? Ugh! Like, come on, man. Do you think Helldivers would be nearly as cool if everyone had the same shit from the get-go? No, you play the game, you get more shit that gives you an advantage over other people, so you have an incentive to play the game more. That's good. That's balance. Yeah, it sucks for newer players, but like you kind of have to fucking deal with that to get into a multiplayer game. If you're going to bitch about the competitive aspect of a competitive game, then don't play the competitive game. Because no shit, some dude that spent 30 hours in COD that morning is going to have a bigger advantage in gun games than you who just booted up the game for the first time. Like, no shit.
peers filming in an underground tunnel, where supposedly a bunch of these demons have been seen hanging around. Shortly after entering the tunnel, the roof collapses. But thankfully, the lives of at least one of the students is spared.
I think the beginning of the game is pretty solid. Although, I will say, it is really bad, in my opinion, that a lot of the NPCs in the game just don't have faces. Like, literally, it's just a blank face with a lot of the human NPCs. And I think that's really stupid. Come on. I don't care if it's the same face. Don't make it a blank fucking face. That's the only complaint I actually have.
As wakes up in what appears to be a
80 hours is maybe a bit too much, yes, but it's not like the way how I described it is that 80 hours would not be the first unlock. So like every 10 hours you play the game, you get like another hero to play as to tide you over for like the next milestone. Again, maybe 10 hours is still a bit too much. Maybe make it 5, but like, or something like that. But like, first unlock, you get someone from the campaign, which Battlefront 2 had. 10 hours in, you get maybe like a lesser known character that no one really gives a fuck about, you know? And then 30 hours in, you get Han Solo. 40 hours in, you get Luke Skywalker. And then 80 hours, yeah, you get Darth Vader. And then he could be like one of the last unlocks you get, like something like that.
Post-apocalyptic form of Tokyo. Before he can make sense of what happened, he's ambushed by a number
then you just don't like the fundamental
demons.
aspect of Battlefront, because that's what the first game was.
A mysterious Tron-looking dude named...
I agree that you shouldn't have allowed microtransactions to get that power early, but the fact that it's in the game does not make it a bad gameplay mechanic. It's pretty cool, and it's the only fucking reason people would play those kind of games. Because no one just wants to play a game where you're just a stormtrooper with no fucking face, or you're just a rebellion soldier with no face. The whole fucking point to play a Star Wars game is to like invoke the idea of like you are a Sith or a Jedi. And Battlefront 2 is the perfect blend of both compromises.
Aogami intervenes. He tells the protagonist...
Anyway, we're reacting to a fucking video. We're not playing about Star Wars. I get it. It was buggy when it came out, but we're not staying on this topic. God damn it.
That if he
I gotta go back.
He's ambushed by a number of winged demons. But thankfully,
funnily enough, I think they're just called demons. I think that's literally like their name.
Mysterious Tron-looking dude.
Yes, you are a trooper, but the gimmick of the game is that you can turn into Han Solo, or you can turn into Darth Sidious, or you can turn into Darth Maul. Like, the whole point of the game is that, yeah, you play as a jobber until you aren't, and then you get to kick ass. That's the whole fucking point. No one plays Battlefront 2 and not uses the hero system.
Named Aogami intervenes. He tells the protagonist that if he wishes to live, that he needs to take his hand. Without any other choice, the protagonist agrees, and
I also have a lot of issues with Aogami in this game. I get that he's a robot man, But holy fuck, man, he could do with the
and
personality.
the two of them fuse into a single entity.
He is the embodiment of a yes man. He's like, you want to do this? Let's do it. You want to do this? Let's do it. You want to do this? Let's do it.
Entity known as the Nahobino. From this point, it is up to us to find our fellow classmates and uncover the mystery behind not only what we have become, but what happened to Tokyo. Now, while I will have multiple criticisms of the story later on, I actually think SMT5's opening is one of the story's strengths, compared to past entries where it can take close to an hour before
I actually
the core
agree with this too,
gameplay
although
loop
I think
starts
3
up.
had a really good opening
SMT5
as well.
gets you there in 10 to 15 minutes. Of course, the
Okay, so he doesn't...
trade-off here is obvious. You get less character development.
Okay, so he doesn't go into what the whole Shimigami thing is. So the entire point, at least in 3 and 5, I cannot speak for 1, 2, and 4. The point of Shimigami is if you could rebuild the world from scratch, as if like God making the Big Bang and creating the world, like in that same philosophy, what kind of philosophy would you use to shape the world? So there's a bunch of other characters that represent the different philosophies, especially in 3, right? So there's like the world of absolute order, which is like everyone has a role, everyone's given a role, and they do the role. No ifs, ands, or buts, right? There's the world of might makes right, where only the strong survive and the weak die off. So the strong only get stronger, and then even the strongest become the weakest, and so on and so forth. And like that's how people progress. Or it's like a world of nothingness, where it's like there are no rules, there is no freedoms, nothing really exists. You just drift aimlessly into the world, like things like that. 3 does a pretty decent. It could be better, but 3 does a pretty decent job of having different characters represent different philosophies as a representation of how you think a world could work if you were God, basically. And 5 does a very similar thing in terms of storytelling, although in my opinion they do it really, really shittily, and none of the characters become actual like a complete character until like the last like 2 hours of the game. And in some cases it's pretty affably bad and stuff. So the entire game, story wise, like the end game is like, what kind of new god do you want to be to create this world? What kind of world? What kind of core philosophies do you want the bedrock of this new society that you're going to create be? And I really like that idea, but I think that they could go a lot crazier with it. And Shimigami 5, for example, is about 50 episodes, so it's roughly about every 2 episodes, so it's roughly about 30 hours, give or take. I didn't do absolutely everything, but like it could be a lot longer too. And I did as much as I wanted to do, which is the case for most of these games. I go until I don't want to play anymore. I don't complete everything. So if I stretch it out, I could easily make it like a 40-hour game. It could be an 80-hour game. It could be a 90-hour game to just have a lot more characters and to emphasize very different philosophies and stuff. However, I will say with 5, it brings a lot of other cultures into it too. Like it brings in a lot of North, a lot of Celtic, a lot of Hindu mythologies, and it kind of fucks with their worldview and how the new world should be presented as well, which I think is a pretty different take rather than 3, which is just like different characters with different philosophies, which ultimately doesn't really end in a cohesive manner, which does kind of suck. But I like the idea, but I think they're just too scared of being more compact. Like, for example, there is a character in 5 that is practically a zealot, but they are not zealoty at all. But it's clear because their partner is an angel, like an archangel, and you kind of know what they're going for, but they are not nearly as self-righteous and zealotric as you want them to be. And so their philosophy seems pretty hollow because you're not even living up to your own philosophies. So why the fuck should I even listen to you? It's a lot of that with a lot of the other characters as well. And there's obviously the clear choice answer that the game wants you to pick. And of course, they're like the good guy and they have a lot of the game to develop. But the other characters are really fucking flat, in my opinion.
up front, and you're not as clued in as to what is going on in the
What's the best game in the series? Well, that's debatable, but I think pretty unanimously, if you want story, I think 3 is the best. If you want gameplay, 5 is the best. But the gameplay of 3 is the same thing as 5, but just with PS2 graphics. If you're playing on PC, there is a mod that makes it HD 4K, which I did eventually use in the Let's Play of me playing it. But the first half of it is in the classic Steam version, which is the PS2 graphics. But in my opinion, if you want the better game, it's probably 3. But 5 is much more modern. It's much more fluid. The animations are a lot prettier. But I think 3 overall, if you can get past the PS2 era jank, it is the better experience.
world around you. That said, you are given just a few pieces of the plot to induce both confusion and curiosity. Once you finally gain control of the protagonist, you cannot wait to explore every ruined highway, skyscraper, and demon-infested desert to see if it will contain one more piece of the answer. For both newcomers and hardcore SMT fans who understand what the games are all about, this might either be ideal or at least a nice change of pace. Most importantly, it gets you to SMT5's strongest element much faster, which is the gameplay.
Yes.
Let's start with the mechanics
and
that
the party
SMT5
building
inherited from
and
past
the party
games and how it evolves them.
compositions.
Aside from the legions of demons that you can either hunt or capture to fight on your behalf, the most iconic element of SMT's game design is the press-turn combat system. To put it simply, you try to determine what element a certain demon is weak to, and
This is a side tangent. It has nothing to do with what he says, but also I actually really, it was really jarring to me at first, like when I played Shin Megami like as a kid, but I really appreciate it. You'll see a lot of these characters that don't necessarily look conventionally attractive, and I really appreciate that, because Shin Megami is a franchise that all of the creatures that you fight, Jesus Christ, Red. Stunlocked me for a second there. All of these demons, like all these creatures, they're demons. All of them are actual characters or spirits from real world mythologies. So you got like you got your Christianity, you got your Hinduism, your Greek, your Roman, your Egyptian, Celtic, all the mythologies. Aztec as well. There's like some more out there mythologies too that not a lot of people know. But what I really like about it too is, like, if you have a lot of this real world knowledge of like ancient histories and different mythologies, it will actually benefit you in the game. For example, this character Nue, this is a Japanese thunder yokai, like an angry Michael Jackson religion. I don't think there's pedophiles in the game. Sorry. But like for example, Nue is a yokai in Japanese story that has a lot to do with lightning. So in every game, you know that Nue will be like a lightning beast. Like he'll usually have very strong lightning abilities, and he'll be weak against things that are weak against lightning, like shit like that. Stuff like that.
and exploit that weakness so that your hits
So,
not only get extra damage,
If you know this before going hand, you'd be like, oh, that's Nue. Is that the same Nue? Yes, it is the same Nue. So then you kind of have an upper edge, and I really like that, how they take inspiration from all that kind of stuff.
but so you can get extra turns to
As well, so like there's also like the Christianity thing. There's also just like Western mythologies too. Like there's like classic Western stuff as well.
apply more damage or buffs and debuffs. Ever since this system was introduced in SMT3 Nocturne, subsequent games have tried to maintain this core formula while adding a twist to keep things interesting. In Strange Journey, there was Demon Co-op, which allowed for extra attacks and damage
funny,
if the
right?
demons in your party shared the same moral alignment. In SMT4,
Oh.
there was the Smirk system, which allowed demons to enter a temporary power state. With SMT5,
That's cool.
we got the Magatsuhi system. And honestly, it might be
Okay.
my favorite combat system.
I think it's my favorite too, but it was so abusable, man. If you had Max Makasuri, it didn't matter if it was a boss or not. It was a guarantee win button. I think because they'll explain it, but I'll explain it too. Every time you score a super effective hit, as in you hit the enemy with an element they're weak against, or you score a critical hit, you gain one extra turn that you can perform an action with. So basically, you can attack twice. And so one of the very first supers you get in the game is you can guarantee for one round of your turn, you can guarantee that everyone can crit. So basically, if that bar is maxed, you can guarantee that everyone on your team can attack twice, and you can do some really nutty shit really fast. And I think it's a little too busted. And it's really easy to max it out too. You just have to fight basic jobbers until it's maxed, or you can collect little gumdrops in the world until it's maxed out and stuff. I think it was too abusable for a game for a series that's notoriously pretty difficult. Like, you actually have to like put on your thinking caps to get through it. I think this game is the easiest to just go brain dumb and just mash buttons, and I don't love that.
From the entire franchise for
Shut
one
up, Fred.
simple reason. It does the least to interfere with the core of press turn. As you fight enemies or collect red orbs in the world around you,
Wait, what?
your Magatsuhi gauge gradually increases.
I
Once
think he
it's
just
full,
counteracted
you are
what I
able to
just said.
perform a special ability, and the ability
Yeah, this guarantees that every attack that your team does will be a crit.
you can perform is determined by what demons you have in your party.
Yeah, but you're always going to have crit on your team
It's not the
on your power, so it's god tier.
most
immediately.
in-depth or mechanically impressive combat system, but sometimes it's better to simplify than to overcomplicate. With Magatsuhi, I found that there were barely any huge difficulty spikes compared to past SMT.
Well, yes, because it was fucking abusable, right? And difficulty spikes, there's nothing wrong with difficulty spikes. It forces you to recalibrate your team, and it forces you to improve. That's what I really like about 3, is that there were some roadblocks that you had to like hunker down, and you had to like actually figure out what the fuck you're doing for your team and move forward. That was a really good thing.
Games.
Roadblocks are not inherently a bad thing. They're really good, especially for a game like this, which is very anti-handholdy.
Also keeping the game challenging. It gives you more room to experiment, more ways to recover from bad situations, and more flexibility compared to something like Strange Journeys combat, where your best strategies were often heavily constrained by alignment. Despite
Strange
my
Journey
love for
was
the system,
very
however,
difficult.
It does have one major problem. Most of the Magatsuhi skills are so situational that for
Okay, this is great. I agree. A lot of these are like pretty decent in certain situations, but again, critical. This one right here, the first one you get, will be good from the moment you get it to the moment you fight the final boss. This one is so unbelievably busted that you don't need anything else. You just need that.
most of the game, you're just going to rely on one move in particular, which is a Magatoki critical.
Thank you. Okay. He says it for me. I think that this should be out of the game. This is too busted. Or at least put it into like mid to late game. It's too fucking busted early
This
game.
ability turns every attack you make into a guaranteed critical until the end
I'm
of
glad
your
we're on the
turn,
same page
which
so far.
to SMT fans is like handing Tony Montana a briefcase full of cocaine and saying, please use responsibly.
Yeah, it's the
You will
perfect
not
example.
use it responsibly. You'll be like,
Say hello to my little friend.
Exactly.
you will use
Even though
Omatoki critical
even though he dies at the end of the interaction, but this guarantees a fucking win for the
constantly.
most part.
You'll use it even when you don't need to because, well, why wouldn't you? When you
Yeah.
have the big red apocalypse button at your disposal. By the time the game
Yeah.
is over, you will use Omagatoki critical more often than Aogami calls you young man.
Yeah.
Young man, young man, young man.
100% agree.
Young man, young man.
100
young
fucking
man,
percent.
Young man.
Agree with
young
this
man,
sentiment.
Young man, young man, young man.
Yes, thank you for noticing my youthful complexion, Aogami, and the fact that I am indeed a man. With my voluminous eyelashes. Anyway, the basic
Yes.
idea behind Magatsuki...
I do find it kind of interesting how very oddly progressive this game is. The main character, despite being called young man, if you just ignore that part, looks very androgynous. The main character looks like it could be a male or female. It gives off very Frisk from Undertale energy, and I like that a lot. Now, unfortunately, he's called young man the entire fucking game, but like if you wanted to be a woman, you could just ignore that part and you would look the part as well.
is fantastic. And it was implemented
Now, if I'm being real, I do like the protagonist's visual appearance a lot more in 3 than in 5, but I do like how his fingers turn into a beam sword, which is really cool.
well enough to create my favorite combat system in the franchise, but it's undeniable that the system has a lot of unexplored potential. Ideally, future games in the franchise will use a similar system, but will make more of the Magatsuhi skills worthwhile.
If they keep it
Now,
up. then yeah,
alongside
I
the
agree.
combat, each of the SMT games has their own version of what SMT5 calls an essence system. It's a series of
shit's
collectibles
complicated,
that
but
allow you to
yes.
determine the skills and affinities that both you and your demons possess. It's akin to Magatama from Nocturne or Demon Sources from Strange Journey in this way. But unlike those games where
Kinda,
they could be
yeah.
restrictive about how many essences you could find and use, SMT5 has more essences than you can know what to do with.
This
I
is true.
understand that limiting them in the other games
This is true. They give them out like fucking candy, and you'll use like maybe like 8 of them.
was intended to make the game more difficult.
I prefer it in 3 because it determines your main character's playstyle entirely, while in 5, because it is, especially towards the end of the game, it's so easy to get essences that you miss. All you need is a simple guide online, or even the game kind of tells you what you need in some of the cases, and just like a little bit of luck that you can easily make your dream team possible in 5, while in 3 you actually need to earn the right to create the dream team you want, which I think is a little bit more rewarding. But I like both. I missed out on a lot of shit in 3, but my team was fucking insane by the end, so clearly it's not like a skill problem.
In a positive way, but to me, it often felt more annoying than challenging. Especially in Strange Journey, where having the right demon source could be the difference between always losing a fight or
Yeah.
winning it almost instantly.
I haven't beaten
On that
Strange Journey.
note,
It was
one
too
thing
hard
that
for me as a kid.
SMT5 does to make things more difficult,
I'd
but
be
in a
interested in playing it
positive
again
way,
now, but
is
again,
to
it
limit
is
how
not
long
a
buffs
content-based
and
game.
debuffs can last. In
It's a
past
DS
games,
game, which
once
means
you
I have to
lowered
create a whole
attack,
overlay for
defense,
it,
or
and
accuracy,
sprites,
that
it's a
change
whole
remained
fucking
in
thing, but I don't
effect
really wanna
until
do
it was removed or overridden. In SMT5, however, buffs and debuffs last for only 3 turns. While I understand why some people would prefer the way it was in past games, because it's one less thing to keep track of, I actually feel that it's a great way to make the combat feel more dynamic without becoming aggravating. Having to cast
I think yes and no, because it's and this is the same problem with 3, and I imagine every other game too. The end game just ultimately every end game fight derives from how quickly can I get max buffs and how quickly can I decrease all of their buffs. You cannot make it to the end game without any kind of stat enhancements or like stat decreases on the enemy. You will always need like someone on your team that is specifically designed to make them as weak as possible or you as strong as possible, preferably both, but one or the other at minimum. And it's a little stale
Tarokaja
because every fight is the same premise, right? It's let me buff my team, hope I survive the first turn, and then buff my team again, heal up, wait another turn, decrease the enemy, heal up, decrease the enemy, heal up, try to do some damage. Rinse and repeat for like the entire like third act of the game. It's a little stale.
or luster candy more than once, in a combat system where every action feels like it really matters, makes the battles feel much more alive. Of course, because this is Shin Megami Tensei,
I kinda
recruiting
disagree.
gods and having a big red apocalypse button is not enough. All of these things
I did not fight the Demi-Fiend in my playthrough. I didn't know how, and I wasn't going to look it up.
require upgrades. Following up on the app systems from Strange Journey and SMT4 is the Miracle System. By spending
This system I actually really liked.
a currency called Glory, you can obtain a variety of permanent enhancements like making a specific elemental attack better, or increasing the number of demons you can hold and how many skills they can possess.
I like this a lot.
It is with the Miracle System that SMT5 really starts to sink, because the Glory currency is not something that you can simply get after fighting enough battles. You have to find it by exploring every
Okay.
inch of the
So let me rephrase. I like it a lot for my first playthrough. If I were to play through 5 again, this shit would be tedious as fuck. I get that. Now, luckily, you're given other ways to get glory, but to find those little fucking demon dudes throughout the whole map, oh my god. I would not care until I find that NPC that I just pay a bunch of money to, that just reveals them all for me, because holy shit, it was pretty fun doing it the first time, but doing it again, fuck that.
the game's map. At hundreds of points throughout my playtime, I was tempted off the main path to find treasures, new demons to recruit, those creepy little red dudes called Mima.
These guys, there's like 100 of these guys you have to find, and every time you get them, you get a little bit of glory. But that little bit of glory really starts to add up after you collect like 20 or 30.
On, each of which not only gave
Is
me
it a D20?
glory to
No.
spend on miracles, but could boost my experience levels instantaneously, or give me items that could help turn the tide of major battles. The last time I felt this addicted to exploring every nook and cranny of a map was when I tried to get all of the agility orbs in Crackdown. But unlike that game, I didn't turn into an overpowered super cop. SMT5 still
Crackdown
remains
was a very
challenging
interesting
even after
series.
collecting everything. It's just that finding everything gave me more strategies with which to approach future battles. There was no empty wandering in SMT5. No useless items or collectibles. Every detour you take feeds back into the game's progression systems. It is simply elegant and
The only complaint I have with that system in 5 is that if you had max items, that chest would still be there. And it's just like, why can't I just have that one extra one, but then I can just like not get more until I use it? Something like that. Like, I just wish that these and granted, they changed color in your map, so you knew it was an item you already had maxed out, but like it was still tedious as fuck to go out of your way to get a chest, only to find out you already had the maximum limit of the item you had in that chest, and so it was useless. That was really annoying.
dangerously addictive. But while I find the outdoor hub worlds to be effectively perfect for my taste, I unfortunately can't say the same thing about the game's dungeons. Thankfully, you're not in any of them for so long
a
that
little
it
bit,
seriously
yeah.
damages the
Demon
experience. But when I
castle
was
sucked.
in them, I could not help but feel a stark contrast between
This map was too fucking long. It was like an hour.
them and the rest of the game.
Also, the puzzles sucked.
The outdoor areas are consistently vertical, rewarding, and
Yes.
visually striking. But the dungeons feel like they're there simply because they have to be, because it's an SMT game. They're not terrible
I do
or
not
frustrating.
mind.
They're just not
I
memorable,
only
especially compared
disliked the Demon King one. Every other dungeon was okay.
to the amazing dungeon design in Nocturne and Strange Journey. They
Strange Journey. So this is the reason why Strange Journey is not playable on camera, because this is the mainstream, and then you literally like you need to visually, yeah, the dungeons look, they're copy pasted as fuck, but that's not really what you play Shin Megami for. But in Strange Journey, the reason why I don't say it's really really good for content is because you need to draw your own map. Like this is hand drawn. Like you need to use the stylus on the DS to make all of these white lines for walls, and you need to place these portals and stuff. Like it's really cool and it's really intricate when you're playing it. But for like any kind of like streaming or recording, it's ass, bro. I could not watch someone play this game for the first time.
mostly amount to a
Like, it's a really good idea, and like Eastern Odyssey does it a lot too, and I'm curious how Eastern Odyssey does it for the PC port. But playing this game is it's not feasible because of this one feature, which is a really cool feature. It's just a byproduct of like content creation, or I would have to either cut out a lot of stuff, or I just would have to ignore it, and both are really fucking tedious and annoying.
very simple maze where demons occasionally block your path. There's hardly any gimmicks that make navigating the dungeons more interesting, and their visual design
So, in my opinion, that's a good thing, because the Demon King Castle, like where this is right now, is one of the few dungeons that has a gimmick, and the gimmick is awful. The gimmick takes so much away from the enjoyment of the game, rather than just me being able to run through it or fight everything if I want to. I like the simplicity of Shin Megami. I do not play Shin Megami for intense puzzle solving, and Demon King had a lot of puzzles that pissed me the fuck off, and I hated it.
often feels drab and monotonous, resorting to the
Not to mention, yes, visually it's very bleak as well. But like, again, you do not play Shin Megami for like amazing environmental art. It's for like the characters and all the creature designs and stuff. You don't play it for the environmental stuff, because a lot of Shin Megami 5 is just like desert. A lot of the game is like desert, and then there's like snow desert. Like, that's it.
same colors and hallways. It's too bad because the rest of SMT5 is so good at using its space for storytelling, and the dungeons are the only thing that feel like they get in the way. Not always, but enough to be a problem. And this is where the side quests come in. They aren't perfect either, and I'll get to that.
I would say it's like a 50-50 ratio for the side quests, if they're good or not. I think a lot of the side quests are just go here, do this. There you go. And a lot of the endgame side quests are go here, do this, fight this big-ass boss, and then come back. But there are some very tedious side quests that, if I were to replay this game, I would just fucking not do.
In a second.
But, however, I do really like that every side quest gives you a permanent unlock. I think that's sick as shit. If you complete a side quest, you either get a monster unlock that you can do like a Team Fusion 4 to get like a really big like bad monster. That's really cool. Or you can unlock a secret super that you can do that has some alignment with that given monster. I think that's sick because that actually incentivizes you to do really shitty side quests other than just really lame, like, oh, here's like $10, thank you for finding my cat kind of side quests. You actually get like actual rewards, and I think that's probably the best way to do side quests in these games.
But they often succeed where the dungeons fall short, by making the world feel like a living battlefield of gods, demons, and their competing moral claims. At their worst, the side quests are kind of like the ones you get in the first Nier game, where you're asked to go get 3 of this item and 5 of that item, and then receive your reward. More often than not, because I spent so much time exploring, I completed the quest the moment that I got it. But at their best, SMT5 side quests allow you to spend time with these mythological entities and get to know them for their history, their quirks, and what they believe. There are 2 types of side quests where these qualities find their best expression.
I love her.
There are the ones where you can play as these demons and see the world through their eyes. And then there are the ones...
but this was a very half-baked idea, and this was just boring as fuck, and this little gimmick did nothing for me the entire game. And it's only mandatory it's only mandatory like 3 times, thank God. But this shit sucked.
Where you have to pick a side in a debate. This involves locking...
This was pretty cool, but although it just came down to what rewards did I want to get.
Yourself out of one quest in favor of another, which will grant you both a unique reward and push you toward a particular moral alignment. Typically, these quests will end with you, your party, and the
maybe
demon
they
you're
changed with the
helping,
vengeance stuff, but it was pretty
the decision
bare
you made
bones
was
when
the
I
best
remember.
one, and they almost always end without giving you a clear answer. This is quintessential Shin Megami Tensei, and it helps elevate the game in spite of its generally lackluster story. So taken purely as a game, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is one of the strongest games that Atlus has ever made. It has its weak points with
If you exclude any of the Persona games, then yes.
the underwhelming dungeons, the errant running side quests, and the untapped potential of the Magatsuhi system, but the core gameplay loop is exceptional. The combat, the exploration, demon fusion, customization, it all feeds into each other so naturally that even when the game stumbled, I never wanted to stop playing. In my opinion, this makes SMT5 probably the best entry point for Western fans, especially those who only know the franchise for the Persona games and want to engage with the mainline games.
And look, if I'm being real, I like Shin Megami a lot. I love the team customization potential of Shin Megami. But as far as I'm concerned, and I'm very sorry, I think Persona is just like the better franchise. It just has the more cohesive experience overall. But it's like 2 ends of a coin. Do you want more story-based games, or do you want more gameplay-based games?
See some Persona fans picking up the earlier SMT games and feeling turned off by them because they feel too difficult, or because they lack the more universally appealing elements that Persona has, like the social links. But SMT5 gives you the essence of the main
I think Shin Megami
franchise
could
in its
do
most
really well
accessible
with
form.
like
It's still
social
challenging, both in
links,
terms of gameplay
sure.
and moral ambiguity,
But it would just
the
be
barrier to entry
Persona with a
is
different
no
coat of
longer
paint.
quite as steep.
So I understand why they don't, but
That
I just
said,
think that Shin
I
Megami
do
just
have
needs
that
more.
one major caveat for newcomers using SMT5 as their introduction to the franchise. When you start
Also,
the
welcome
game,
back, Carter.
you are given an option to experience the original version of the story via what it calls the canon of creation, and the new version of the story via the canon of vengeance. While I believe that the canon of vengeance is clearly the superior version of SMT5's
This is
story,
what everyone's
I
been
have a
saying.
hard time recommending people play it first.
Yes,
but
'cause
saying that you
it's-
should play canon of creation first is not so simple. If you start with Canon of Vengeance, you will get the framework of the original story. But what will change is the central philosophical debate and the characters who embody it. While it largely succeeds at weaving this new debate into the old narrative, there are definitely moments where the game feels like it expects you to already know what happened in the canon of creation. Certain characters will appear without the original story's context, and you won't understand why they're there. Or characters that—
And my issue is I'm not going to play through the entire game again just for like a handful of new cutscenes and some new dialogue. It's the unfortunate reality of it. This was a DLC intended for people who played it when it came out, beat it, and then like 2 years later this DLC came out to add more to it. It's so daunting, no pun intended, to finish the game only to boot it up again just to play roughly the same game again.
That were more important in the original story's context will feel ushered to the background. Plus, if you're new to SMT, the Canon of Vengeance isn't the best representation of the core philosophical debate that the franchise has iterated on for decades.
Which I got
An
pretty
intrinsic
heavily
part
from it.
of every SMT game is deciding whether you will act in a way that is
Okay, so I talked about this earlier, but yes.
lawful, chaotic, or neutral, and those
How you think is the right way to shape the new world.
decisions will determine what ending you
And I don't think it's as simple as like black and white or gray. I think there's a lot, at least in 3, there's a lot more nuance to which kind of ending you want.
get.
If I played, you paid attention to chat, eh? You just noticed. I saw it. Don't get me wrong, fuckface. I saw it. I just didn't acknowledge it. There's a difference. If I played Persona, most of my gameplay would be me trying to riz up the most outrageous characters. Then you would fall right in line with everyone else. I'm sorry. That's not a unique mindset, my dude.
Canon of Vengeance doesn't really deal with that. To put it as simply and spoiler-free as I can, Canon of Creation makes you ponder what you want the world to become, and Canon of Vengeance makes you ponder whether that question should even exist in the first place. So if you're new to the franchise, or if you want the context that Canon of Vengeance misses, you might think Canon of Creation is the best bet. But the problem is that you're going to have to sink in at least 50 to 60 hours of your life to get to the end. And even longer than that if—
And it's not just that, it's the fact that you have to play the game twice. And that's like the bigger egregious part.
if you're a completionist. Then you'll sink in roughly the same amount if you start Canon of Vengeance immediately after.
I think the base game was about 25 hours. So it's not too bad, but if you double that, it's 50. It's pretty annoying.
And while you will get a better story, you're going to be re-experiencing a lot of the same scenes all over again.
Yes.
Even for me, somebody who
Which you could see up the cutscenes to make it go by faster, but it's still tedious.
loves this game, that's asking a lot. Ultimately, you end up missing out on integral things regardless of which route you choose, which really sucks. If you don't mind spending more time going through this game twice than you would on an average playthrough of a Persona game, I suppose you could start with Creation. Otherwise, just play the Vengeance route, and read up on the things you missed later.
Yeah, but that's just boring, man.
Before I can properly explain how Canon of Vengeance improves SMT5's story and gives it its philosophical density, I need
look,
to
it's
explain
come.
what was wrong
It's
with
coming.
the original version, which I will do with very minor spoilers, mainly regarding which character chooses which alignment. To be clear, Canon of Creation is not a bad story. In fact, on paper, it has everything you would want from a mainline SMT game. There's a ruined Tokyo, angels and demons fighting each other, and teenagers thinking they have the capacity to rule the world. And the beginning of the game establishes this quite well, right after setting up a compelling mystery to pull you in. The problem is that once the premise is established, the entire middle of the game
Yes.
feels strangely vacant.
You don't
Though
really
there is
do
plenty of
a
time
lot
to
of
explore
anything that
incredible
impacts.
environments
You're just
and
told to
uncover
go
bits
here
of
and
lore,
do this
the
for
actual
no real
narrative
reason.
through line feels more or less invisible. This is especially noticeable when it comes to the game's characters. In a typical SMT game,
Yeah, after you defeat Lamu, which I would say would be like the Act 1 boss, basically. Like the halfway point maybe of the game. After you defeat him, there's not a lot of reasons for you to like do what you do afterwards. You're just told to do some stuff and you're just like, okay. Like, that's it.
The major human characters are not simply assigned philosophical positions. You watch them develop into these positions. You spend hours seeing how their ideals and their traumas eventually push them toward law, chaos, or neutrality. And even when you disagree with them, you understand how they got there. That is typically the best part of playing the SMT games, at least for me. And with Canon of Creation,
see that.
most of the characters feel undercooked. The character of Dazai is probably the only character in the game that has any sort of arc.
Okay, technically yes, but he doesn't reach his conclusion to the arc, and his character doesn't become online until like the last 2 hours of the game. Like, it's really, he doesn't exist as a real character for like 90% of the game.
Even though I didn't feel emotionally invested in his journey, you can see why his neuroticism and
I like
desire
his
for
character a
purpose
lot. He
lead to
just
him being
doesn't
susceptible to
do
order.
anything.
But for everybody else, it feels like you're watching a character get assigned to philosophy because the story needs somebody to stand in that spot.
That's
the
a lot
character
more fair.
Yakumo is technically the neutral representative.
Which, okay, again, this dude's in the game for fucking 10 minutes. He shows up, he tries to kick his ass. He shows up later, he tries to kick your ass. Then he shows up at the end and he's like, fuck you, choose my side. And it's just like, what? No, fuck you. Jesus Christ. I discovered something about BioShock after you beat it. Spoilers when I wasn't played it, I don't care. The Sandra Cohen section of the game blocks communications to Atlas. This is the only section of the game without an objective arrow telling you where to go. I assumed it was a game. No, that's cool. Yeah, I'm glad I picked up on it. Yeah.
And his hatred of both gods and
Also, you get a good achievement if you take a photo of his corpse. I don't know if you did that, but yeah.
demons is one of the more interesting ideas in the story. But for most of the game, the reason why he has this belief is frustratingly opaque. Though you do eventually understand why he
Yes.
thinks the way that he does, the context comes way too late.
Dude, me and this fucking guy are on the same thought process for this entire video so far. By the time you should care, you've already have your convictions.
Too unfulfilling, and in a few cases is relegated to optional dialogue that you can easily miss. Worst of all, though, is the character of Yuzuru, who I refer to as a Kryno, a Chaos rep in name only.
Okay. I wouldn't think I guess technically he's the Chaos in retrospect, but that's a good point.
Very little about his personality,
Don't
behavior,
know why.
or
Oh, that
development
sucks.
communicates chaos in the way that characters like Jimenez does in Strange Journey, or Chiaki in Nocturne. He is not rebellious, passionate, anarchic, or intoxicated by freedom. He is a very responsible, level-headed dude that does everything he can to take care of his sister. But the game needed a Chaos rep, so sure, why
Yeah,
not
that
give it to the
sucks.
guy
I don't
whose
know why
idea of rebellion is returning a library book one day late? Eventually, the ideas that these characters
I thought he would be Chaos
represent do culminate
because he goes kind of crazy. Spoilers.
in ways that are interesting. In the last
And also, Dazai is Chaos. What are you talking about?
third of the game, but it doesn't override the fact
I don't think I agree with that. Unless it's canon or whatever. Because, so, this guy, the entire game has been told that he's been a weak guy. He's a weakling. He doesn't have any power to commune with any powerful demons or whatever. And he's not a Nahabino, which is what the main character is, and that's basically a normal person that is able to fuse with a god to gain the power to control demons. For the most part, there's a lot more nuance to it, but a Nahabino is the prerequisite to become a god to create the new world. In the entire game, this motherfucker has been told that he does not have the capabilities of becoming one.
in ways
But
that are
then,
interesting.
spoiler, he does, and it's the Archangel lady that has been on your side the entire time, who then became very zealotry, because it's been confirmed that God, the Christian God, died. Satan killed Christian God off screen, and that's the whole premise of why you're in the shithole you're in now, all the desert or whatever. And so she goes crazy, but then finds out that she can fuse with Dazai, the blonde guy, and then they go into their whole villain arc. And then when you confront them, which if you do not choose their philosophies at the end, they become like a boss rush at the end, which I did. You fight her. she then says, "Fuck it. If I am to go if I am to go against what my God said anyway, then I might as well go all the way." And she becomes like a fallen angel. She becomes a devil. How the fuck is that not chaos? Chaos is like. I think chaos is a representation of good and evil merging into just like incomprehension, right? That's literally what chaos should be. And so I think Dazai is chaos because he fits the mold so much better than the main dude. And then fucking this jerk off is more law because he's all about order and putting things back the way they were. So I think he's got this reversed, unfortunately.
Eventually, the ideas that these characters represent do culminate in ways that are interesting in the last third of the game. But it doesn't override the fact that the characters and their ideas feel placed into the story rather than developed through it. The whole thing just feels like a less cohesive repeat of Nocturne.
I'll check DMs in a sec.
Now some
Carter,
might say, and right
in about 10
rightly
minutes.
so, that Nocturne's story wasn't as densely packed and felt sparse at times. That is true, but it felt intentional in Nocturne, like it was trying to be more of a parable than a traditional narrative. SMT 5 felt like it was trying to merge Nocturne's mythic structure with Strange Journey's narrative framework,
Yes.
but it never fully bridges those two approaches. It's
I agree.
too narratively complex to be a parable, but too underdeveloped to have satisfying character.
Yeah, so this is his chaos form where he gets all punky and shit because the angel and him join forces and they become combined, and he goes, well then I guess I have to do this shit myself, and he becomes a punk. But this happens like right before the final dungeon, and it's like, what the fuck? In my mind, chaos is the opposite of order. It's rebellion against a rule. It's objection against law or organization of law. But that's evil. Like there's good and evil. Chaos is the incomprehension combination of the two. Because in my opinion, chaos needs to be a little bit of good and a little bit of bad. It literally needs to be like a fence sit. It's objection against law, organization, and law. It's free will incarnation to its own harm. Okay, so then yeah. But I think I think the methods to achieve it we differ on. But I think this motherfucker. I think this guy fits chaos way more than this guy, and the I forget your name. I'm so sorry. And then Max here wants to point out that these guys are swapped philosophy, and I don't think so at all. When this guy fits chaos and this guy fits law, far more better.
Drama. All in all, Canon of Creation has many great ideas spread throughout the game, but they are rarely as compelling in their execution.
So a fascist dictator is legality. That's not morally good. No, because law does not equate to morality. But it's the but we're not talking about laws in terms of like you can't steal. We're talking about laws of nature, laws of order, like time and space. Like we're talking on like a divine scale here. Right? So being against the law isn't bad. It can be, but chaos can be either. I get that, yeah, but I think it's more like Law and Order, like not as in like the fucking lawyer TV show, but like the fundamental rules of like the cosmos. Same as being lawful can be evil if it's a corrupt one, right? But then is it really lawful at that point? If you know you're evil but you say you're lawful, are you really lawful? Not really. I mean, it's a bit of a contradiction, right? We're not. Yeah, Law and Order. Law and Order is one of the most boring lawyer shows in existence. I will never watch Law and Order.
Canon of
willingly.
Vengeance feels like such a dramatic improvement. From this point forward, though, I will be discussing full story spoilers for both Canon of Creation and Canon of Vengeance.
Okay, you have been warned. I do not care. I will not be playing this game again anytime soon, so I will not remember by the time I do.
So if you haven't played the game yet, skip to the
Well, yes, chaos should be a contradiction. It should be good and evil merging into being incomprehensible. That's literally what I said.
time code you see on screen. You have been warned.
I will not be doing that.
The fundamental question that Canon of Creation asks is how you would rule the world if you were to inherit it. What the Canon of Vengeance asks is whether that question should exist.
Chaos is free will. You cannot have order with free will. You can't, I mean, not absolute order, but like it is possible, but that's being nitpicky, sure.
In the first to inherit it. What the canon
But you can also argue that that can be part of the chaos. So in a cosmic world, chaos is all that humanity can do. Yes, that's why there's countless tales of humanity being the harbingers of like doom in like every single one of them. What alignment would I be if you had to assume? I have a feeling, Red, that you would be a little bit more on the dominant side. You would be a little bit more might is right mixed with free will, but like you would give the world free will, but you would make sure that you were the dominant one. That's the vibe I get from you. Order is the law of the gods. I mean, whatever, sure.
of vengeance asks is whether that question should exist in the first place, and more importantly, who was sacrificed to make that question possible. By choosing the law ending, you sacrifice those in favor of chaos, and vice versa. And if you choose neutral, you sacrifice both law and chaos. But the forces of these respective alignments don't simply disappear when they lose. After all, concepts like law and chaos cannot exist without their opposites to define them, which means that any victory achieved is only temporary, and the defeated side becomes a reservoir of misery, resentment, and thoughts of revenge. And no character in SMT 5 understands or represents those negative sentiments better than Yoko Hiromine. She is a new character exclusive to the Canon of Vengeance. And while this story doesn't have traditional alignment representatives like Canon of Creation does, Yoko is the closest thing both routes have to a true Chaos representative. But she's...
I do stand that Dazai is a really good representative, but okay.
not Chaos in the usual SMT sense. She's not arguing for ultimate freedom or survival of the fittest or the simple overthrow of order. She's arguing that the world as it exists is morally illegitimate because it was built on suffering that no one has ever answered for. Now, while I have many positive things to say about Yoko, I have...
Which, if we take into the account then that 3 is the distant prequel to 5, then technically yes.
I have to be honest and off...
Which it's never been confirmed, although the main character of 3 is in 5. It's technically alluded, but at no point in the game has it been ever confirmed. It's just like kind of like, yeah, that's what happened, but sure.
For one major criticism. As an actual character, she can come off as cartoonishly edgy at times, like a teenager who just entered her emo phase. For instance, at one point
I'm sure
in
she
the game,
loves
the
Sasuke.
solution she offers to a girl who is being bullied is for her to kill the ones tormenting her, which is less wise moral philosopher and more like my guidance counselor is the Joker. But as a philosophical representative,
you're feeling sad? Just kill yourself. Oh, okay, thanks.
Yoko is fantastic. She embodies a cosmic mythological resentment, one that has been buried under the foundations of law for millennia. One that goes all the way back to what the game and what real-life mythology might refer to as the first sin. One of humanity's oldest creation myths is the Mesopotamian story of Marduk and Tiamat. To keep it short and simple, the god Marduk slew the dragon of chaos Tiamat and created the world out of her corpse. Tiamat, in this case, represents the world or the universe in a state that preceded concepts like law and chaos, and her slaying, in the eyes of somebody like Yoko, brought with it the first feelings of resentment. For the suffering that came with this world's creation rendered this universe fundamentally broken. So Yoko seeks to restore that original state, but she can't do so on her own. The Canon of Vengeance also introduces the Kadishtu, the 4 female servants that once served Tiamat when she was still alive and intact. Like Tiamat, the 4 of them also represent that pre-cosmic paradoxical state, and the evidence for this lies in their names. The word Kadishtu is also a Mesopotamian word, specifically Akkadian. In English, it translates to sacred women. And historically, it seems to refer to a class of holy priestesses, though this is debated. However, the names of the 4 Kadishtu...
See, this is what I love about Shin Megami as a whole. It does its best to combine every mythology into one story. I think that's really cool though. I love it when games. I love it when stories in general do this.
Their chaste title. The names Asheth, Nama, Agrat, and Lilith are the names of the wives of Samael.
Lilith is like one of the most like stereotypical evil lady names in all of fantasy though. So the other ones are cool though.
A demon from the Jewish Kabbalistic tradition. In other words,
Like how many IPs have Lilith to be like the queen of hell or something? Like the daughter of the devil, like shit like that.
they are both sacred yet profane, and they act on behalf of the Mother Goddess, who embodies these amongst all the other opposites of life. Through Tiamat and the Kadishtu, the conflict between law and chaos becomes the aftershock of an original wound. They are two sides of a universe that was born from violence, and because of this, both sides are still trying to justify the terms of their own existence. Also, in a way, the canon of vengeance is the most extreme symbolic expression of the phrase "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." In this case, it's the original symbolically feminine chaos.
It's the original Karen
forever by the symbolically
Beware.
masculine law. And now they are taking their revenge.
First Karen.
That said, not all women in this game share Yoko and the Kadishtu's perspective. There is also the character of Tao. She becomes the closest thing to a law rep in Vengeance. She is not only a fantastic ideological opponent to Yoko, but she is easily a better written character. She honestly contends and struggles with the strength and reason of Yoko's worldview. Tao acknowledges that the world is broken, but she nonetheless believes that the world we know is worth preserving and can be healed. And her belief in this notion, despite the suffering she sees around her, is persistently moving. Especially when those on her own side betray what law should ideally stand for. Her allegiance to law is not due to a lack of strength, like
the one that dies is
Dazai,
the other
but
girl
due
that
to a
looks exactly
surplus
like
of
her.
it. With Tao and Yoko, the concept of vengeance becomes something that can't be categorized as a simple moral failing, but a genuine philosophical problem. Can the created world ever be truly good or innocent if it was built on exclusion, sacrifice, and the silencing of the oppressed? Can any god or religious organization truly be legitimate if its stability depends on victims who are never allowed to speak? Is it truly so simple to say that Tao is right and no act of vengeance can be justified? Or maybe vengeance is the form justice takes when every other path to justice has been denied? Though the philosophical debates between Tao and Yoko on these matters are well written, it is not confined to them. It not only appears in the new side quests and story arcs, but it also reframes past quests and arcs in a much more interesting way. Take the side quest involving the demons Apsaras and Linan Shi, which was also in the canon of creation.
Oh yeah, I remember this
Apsaras
quest.
protects weaker demons, offering them shelter and guidance, but Linan Shi interprets this as telling weaker demons that they should settle for a life of mediocrity. Worse yet,
those are cool.
if Apsaras created
It's one of the first
a large enough
make a choice
congregation,
quests
they
you
could
have in the
overthrow Linan's culture of individuality and strength and replace it with a culture of degradation and dependency. Within the canon of creation, this is a question of how to be a good ruler, but in canon of vengeance, it becomes a more foundational moral question. It's reminiscent of the master-slave morality that the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche conceptualized. In his case, he would likely side with Linan Shi, and see Apsaras as stoking a resentful culture of slaves who want to categorize traits like harmlessness and meekness as good, as a way to compensate for their lack of strength or will. At root, he would perceive such an endeavor as an act of vengeance against their masters, albeit a subtle one. Apsaras would argue that in some instances, the weak are
so I understand that. However, if you know the world, these lesser demons, there's no way for them to improve or enhance themselves, not without the aid of an Ahabino, right? So like they are stuck at these lesser demons. There's no way for them to like evolve, right? They're not Pokemon. While if you translate this to real life, every human has the potential to be great. I fundamentally believe that, regardless of caste, creed, and upbringing, right? However, in this case, these lesser demons are going to be lesser demons forever, right? It doesn't really matter what really happens unless they join an Ahabino and then they get fused into a powerful demon. That's like the only real way. So I think It's not a perfect one-to-one, although I understand what he's going for, but if you understand like the world of how Shin Megami works, I think it's pretty one-sided as to who is the right side in this.
So disenfranchised that they need compassion and protection in order to become strong. And prioritizing strength, or maybe what Nietzsche would call the will to power, above all else, is in its own way a form of vengeance against the mere existence of the weak. The game indirectly invokes all of these questions, and it beautifully chooses not to answer any of them, instead opting for you to choose what you feel is the best option between the two. But perhaps the most interesting display of this moral ambiguity is not with the side quests, but with the renewed character arcs. With Yuzuru, he goes from being a failed Chaos rep to somebody who desperately wants
Again, I don't think he's Chaos, but sure.
to protect his sister Miyazu.
Which, okay, I'm glad that she gets more spotlight in Vengeance. She shows up for like 5 minutes in the base game.
She is physically weak due to no fault of her own, and for the entirety of the game, Yuzuru is forced to watch gods, demons, and institutions fail to protect his sister. As a consequence, Yuzuru's protectiveness starts to look like a more intimate expression of the game's central theme, how resentment can be born from feelings of helplessness and whether vengeance is warranted. With Yakumo and Nua, their arcs now make more thematic sense. The desire to create a world without gods and demons goes from a desire for balance to a
But again, a world without gods and demons, how is that also not a good representation for what Chaos is? They literally want nothing to represent everything. That also feels like it's a good rep for Chaos too. So like the messaging is all over the place, in my opinion.
desire to take revenge on the whole system, the one that allowed humanity to be ruled in the first place. And finally, Dazai's character arc shows that vengeance is not exclusive to Chaos. His siding with the forces of law can be viewed as a subtle act of vengeance towards his own self-resentment. And standing between all of these moral claims is the Nahobino, a being who will inherit the power to create, but must decide whether creation itself can be morally justified. This is a much more powerful question to ask than what ideology gets to rule the next world. You are deciding whether the act of making a world can ever be separated from the suffering required to bring it into being. And if it can't, then the question becomes whether humanity can make the world good enough to answer for the suffering that made it possible. At every level of the story, the theme of vengeance is expanded until it touches everything, from the pain of everyday people to the grudges of gods. Not every example is explored with equal depth,
Yeah, dude,
but
I'm sorry.
together,
Demi-Fina
they
is so much
give
more
the
horror.
story a narrative through line and a thematic cohesion that the original desperately lacked.
That would be a good Chaos because it's not a system with a rule. It's no good nor evil. It's not controllable. Yeah. So like that's my only like again. It's one of the issues I have, and it's also one of the very few disagreements I have with this guy, is that the one representation he chose for Chaos I think is the least representative of Chaos he could have chosen. I think the other two have significantly more room for argument than the one he chose, which again I don't know if it's was what he chose or what the game chose, but still I think the other ones have way more of a fucking have a case to be representative.
That's why the Canon of Vengeance earns the title of philosophical epic in my eyes. And in the end, that is what makes SMT5 Vengeance feel so much larger than the usual re-release. In its own way, the re-release's mere existence is the perfect expression of its theme. The original story arguably failed, but the developers struck back.
I wouldn't say it failed. I would just say that 3 did it a lot better.
Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button if you like this
G.
video. It's quick, free, and it helps me out a lot. Also, make sure to subscribe. I've gotten a lot of comments from people lately saying that they've been randomly unsubscribed from me, so make sure that isn't the case. And if you never were subscribed, you should, so you don't miss more quality.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Subscribe to Matt Durnett. The original video will be in the description below. Hope you all had one of them. Hope you all have one of them. Until next time we meet, hope you all have a fucking day. Peace.